Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael, and if you like homemade artisan bread as much as I do and you don't want to use your Dutch oven for that, I found something in one of the big box wholesale clubs the other day, and I'll put a link in the description box where I got this one. I did buy this with my own money. I wasn't sponsored by this company to buy this, and I thought we would do an opening of this box and see what's inside of it, and then for a special treat I'm going to make some bread at the end, and I'm going to be making some cranberry walnut bread in it. So this will be the unboxing, and we're going to see how it works in the oven. So this is the Tramontina enameled cast iron 9.5-inch bread oven, and I'm going to look at the back here and see what it says. You might be able to see here on the box where it came from. It says it has a lifetime warranty here on the side, which is nice to know. We'll have to look at that and see what all that entails. And it says bring the joy of brick oven style baking into your kitchen with the Tramontina 9.5-inch cast iron bread oven. It's a must-have for creating delicious, heartwarming breads for you and your loved ones. And it says it's good on induction, gas, electric, ceramic glass, oven safe, and it says to hand wash only. And the front just has a couple of things on the front. It just says even heat distribution, porcelain enameled interior, solid stainless steel knob, and a high domed lid. And it's got 4 different colors here on the front of the box as well. So let's give this an open and see what's inside of it and take a look at it. This will be the first time I've opened it too, and take a look at it. So we'll all be just as surprised when we open this up as what's in it. Packaging is nice in it. It's really tightly fit in there. All right, so now that we've got that extra cardboard out of there, let's see what we've got inside here. This looks like this is the dome to this. That's wrapped in plastic very nicely. Let's take that off and see what we've got here. We've got a nice brass colored knob on the top of that. This is a substantial weight to this, and it looks like it's going to be a nice size, about the size of what an artisan loaf that I would normally make in one of my Dutch ovens or one of my Emil Henry cookers that I have. So let's go ahead and see what the base looks like. I don't think there's anything else in there, so I can set this to the side. So we'll take the plastic off of that piece, and we've got nice enameling on the inside of that. And it says 9.5-inch or 24.1 centimeters. Tramontina on the bottom. So this looks like a nice piece. I'll get a weight on this, and I'll put that in the link in the description box below. So you'll have the weight on that, and I'll put that in imperial and in metric, so you've got both the pounds and the grams on that. So this looks like a really nice bread oven that we've got here. I'm going to go give this a wash, put this to the side. I'll come back and we'll get started making that bread. So we're going to start out with 1.5 cups of water, or that's 360 milliliters, and you want that to be between 100 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Anything above that could kill the yeast, and we definitely don't want that. Anything lower than that, it might take it a little bit longer for it to activate. All right, so now into our water, we're going to be putting in 1 tablespoon of this 15 milliliters of honey. Now, if you don't have honey, you can use the same amount of sugar, and you'll put that into our water. An easy way to get the oil out of the tablespoon is just put a little bit of oil in it. So I've got one of these little spray bottles here, but if you don't have one of these, then you can definitely use the can spray. And we're going to put just a little bit of oil into the bottom of our spoon. Doesn't take much. And then I'll measure out 1 tablespoon of my honey. And with that, we'll put that right into that water. See how easy that is? There's no more of that honey in there. That comes out of there really easy with just that little bit of a trick there. So give that a try. If you've ever had anything that's sticky, you can just put just a little bit of spray oil in the bottom of a pan or a bowl or something like that, and it'll come right out. Now with our water, I've already tested it to make sure that I was within range of my temperature that I've got here. So now I'm going to put in 1/2 teaspoon of my active dry yeast, and put that in, or that's 2 grams. And I'm just going to give that a stir through so that we get that yeast in there with that sugar, because yeast loves sugar. And with that honey in there, it's really going to help activate this really quickly. And just give that a good stir around. Set this to the side, let it sit for about 5 minutes, and we'll come back. If it doesn't activate, then you know you've got bad yeast, and you want to start over with that new process with the fresh batch. So I'm gonna put this to the side and we'll come back and we'll move on with our other ingredients. All right, I'm looking at my yeast now. I've activated the yeast. If you don't have this foam on the top, you know that the yeast that you've got is not going to. If it's just flat like on the surface, then you need to throw that out and get you some fresh new yeast so that you can get this activation on it, or you'll go through the whole process and your bread won't rise. And definitely don't want to do that if we're going to let it sit and rise. So now I've got 3 cups of bread flour. You can also use all-purpose flour if you want to. It just won't have that chewy texture that you get in an artisan bread. So this is 3 cups or 360 grams of a nice bread flour. I've got 1.5 teaspoons or 9 grams of salt, and with their salt you want to put it in with your flour. You don't want to put it in with your liquid because the yeast and the salt don't get along together. So if you put this in with your bread flour and just kind of give that a whisk through, once you bring in your water and your yeast and your honey, then it'll be fine. But you definitely don't want to put the salt in with the water while you're trying to activate the yeast. It just won't happen. All right, now that I've got that salt incorporated into the bread flour, let's bring in our water, our honey, and our yeast. Now this is going to be a wet and kind of a shaggy dough, so it's not going to be dry like what we're going to be doing, because we're going to be letting this sit for a longer time so it can develop a nice flavor for our bread. All right, that looks good. We just brought that together so that that flour is combined up in there, and you can see here it is going to be a little bit on the sticky side, and that's what that's supposed to look like. And now I've got 1/2 cup or 60 grams of dried cranberries. Now if you have the opportunity to get some fresh ones, you can definitely do that, and I've got some fresh ones here, and what you'll do with those is you'll just take these and cut these in half. Now these are not going to be as sweet as the ones that are dried already because they've got a little bit of sugar on those. So this will be a little bit more tart, and this will be a little bit more sweet bread. So you can take your choice. If you want the fresh ones with a little bit of tart, with the holidays coming up, you might want to try these. And if you want a little bit more on the sweeter side, then use the dry ones. They'll have a little bit more sweetness to them. So we're just going to put those in just like that. And with our walnuts, I've got 60 grams of walnuts, so that's 1/2 cup of my walnuts, and I've got those just roughly chopped. You don't want really big pieces because when you cut into your bread, you want it to be nicely, evenly distributed throughout. You don't want to see big chunks in it, but you can definitely put it that way if you want to. I just like it where it's chopped up roughly like that so that you get more bites in your bread. And we'll just put that in just like that. And we're just going to kind of gently fold this in together. I've got my cranberries and I've got my walnuts combined in there together now, and you can see we've still got just a rough, shaggy dough on that. So that's what we're looking for. Now we're going to put a piece of saran wrap across the top of it. I've got these little bonnets that I've got here, and I'm just going to put that over the top. And we're going to set this someplace out. If you want to leave it on the counter, if you've got a warmer room, you can do that. You can also put this in your oven, and that way it'll be in there away out of the drafty room, and it might be a little bit warmer in there than it would be if it was just sitting out. Or you can stick it in your microwave. If you use the microwave or the oven, just make sure those are not on or never come on. You definitely don't want to put your bread in the oven and then somebody come in and accidentally turn the oven on. So now we're just going to let this sit somewhere for about 12 to 18 hours. And what that's going to do is that's going to develop those nice flavors in there, and that's just going to all meld together. And we want this to double in size. And I'll come back and I'll show you what we're going to do next. It's been about 14 hours now since I started the bread rise, and I'm back now, and I've got my bread oven here clean and ready to go. So I'm going to place that in the oven. I'm going to preheat that oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've cut a little piece of parchment paper. Normally when I'm using a regular Dutch oven, I would use a piece this size and just crimp it up on the sides when I put it into the Dutch oven. But I cut this so that it fits right in the bottom there, a little bit bigger than that, so that the bread will sit on the bottom just like that. I'm hoping that's going to be big enough. We're going to say this is an experiment because I haven't used one with this dome on it before like that. I normally just use a regular Dutch oven, and the walls on it, are taller, and then the flat lid on the top. So I'm going to put this into that oven. You want the oven to be cold. Your bread baker here is cold. We'll turn it on and preheat that up for about 30 minutes on 450 Fahrenheit. And I'll put the metric conversions in the description box below, and I'll get started working on my dough, and that'll be the next step. So stick with me, and I'm going to go start that oven up. All right, I've got the bread oven in the oven, and it is preheating up to that temperature now. So we're going to start with our bread. So I'm going to set this to the side. And I'm going to show you what my bread looks like now. It should have doubled in size. So that's looking really good where we've got that now. So I'm going to set this aside for just now, and I'm going to grab me some flour, and I want to lightly flour the surface here. And I'm going to come in and put just a little bit of flour on my hands. That way when I start folding this over on itself, it won't stick to my hands. So now that we've got this, my hands covered and my board covered, I'm going to go ahead and turn this dough out onto the countertop here. I'm going to come in and put just a little bit of flour on the top of the bread loaf. And with this, we're just going to turn it on itself about 4 or 5 times. So I'm going to get my hands under it and just kind of stretch it out till it's, you know, kind of in a rectangular shape, and then just turn it in on itself about 3 times like that. And then we will fold it over just like that and press it down. Now we're going to turn it 90 degrees and just kind of stretch it out just a little bit more there. And we'll do the same thing with that. Just turn it into thirds and let it into thirds again. And if it wants to try to snap back on you, just let it rest for a few minutes and you can come back in and continue to do that. So I'm just going to do this about 3 more times, and then we're going to let this sit. I've turned it on itself now about 5 times, and I'm going to turn it over onto the top, and I'm going to roll this until I get a ball shape. So just kind of use the ends of your hands here and just push it under, and you'll be able to roll it into that shape like a ball there. We want the top to be smooth. All right, now I'm going to come in with this paper that I've got here, and I'm going to put the dough ball on the paper so it can rest on that. Now I've got a bench scraper that I'm going to kind of clean up the bench just a little bit here so I can rest this paper on it here with the dough ball on it. We'll get all of this excess flour up. All right, I've got my dough ball on the little piece of paper that's going into my Dutch oven. I'm going to put this larger piece under it. All right, I've got this larger piece of paper under the smaller one, and I'm going to use that to slide that off onto the base of the bread cooker that I've got there. So I'm going to let this sit here. I've got a towel here, and I'm just going to cover this and let this sit for about 30 to 45 minutes. And we're going to wait for our oven to heat up. And once we come back, this should rise just a little bit more. It'll relax a little bit. And we'll come back and we'll put it into the bread oven and put it in the oven, and we'll see what this looks like. So stick with me. We'll come back and we'll put this into the bread oven. I am back, and my dough has been resting here for about 40 minutes now. So I've got a bread lime, and if you don't have a bread lime, you can use a really sharp knife. But what we want to do is we want to cut a slit in the top of it, because if you don't do that, when you bake your artisan bread like this in the oven, it's going to find a place for the steam to come out, and it might be on the sides, it might be across the top, you just never know. So if you create the slit, you can put it and tell it where you want it to burst open the bread dough. Now you can get really creative with this. I'm just going to put a single slice across the top, and then I'm going to put maybe just a little bit here on the side, and just kind of hit some little cross marks here on the side here. You can get just as creative as you want with this. There, now I've told the dough where I want it to open up so that the steam can escape. I'm going to go get the bread oven out of the oven, and we'll come back, and I'm going to put something here so I don't burn my countertop, because that thing is going to be scorching hot. So when you pull yours out of the oven, be really careful, because you know you've had it in there at 450 degrees. I'll be right back. All right, I've got some heavy duty mittens on. Definitely you want to make sure you got something on that's going to protect your hands. I'm going to take the dome off and put this on the stove, and I'll come back and we'll slide the bread in it. All right, be really careful with this. Don't touch the sides. I'm going to put the dough in it just like that. And I might have, I'm going to cut this just a little bit deeper there, because it kind of touched it when I put it back in there. I definitely don't want that to close up on me. I'm going to put my gloves back on again. I'm going to go grab the dome. I'm going to put the dome on it just like this. I'm going to put it back in that oven, and we're going to cook this now for 30 minutes with the dome on. At 30 minutes, you'll take the dome off. And at that point, you're going to cook it for another 10 to 15 minutes, and you're browning the top of your bread. So if you like it really dark, leave it in there a little bit longer. If you don't want it in there as long, keep a watch on it. I'll see you back when mine is done. I am back, and I got my bread out of the oven. I took the dome off of it. This one cooked for 30 minutes. So keep a watch on it. Everybody's oven's going to cook a little bit differently. I didn't even take the dome off of this one. So normally if you're cooking them in a regular Dutch oven, you would take the dome off and put it back in there again. But my oven cooked this through to the doneness that I like on the top here. So check your oven at 30 minutes. Everybody's is going to cook just a little bit differently, and you definitely, if it's not dark enough for you, then take the dome off of it, put it back in there, and keep a watch on it. So now we're going to put this on this rack here and let this rest on the rack for about an hour. You do not want to cut into it now while it's really hot, unless you plan on eating the whole thing at one sitting. So if you cut into it now, you'll let all of that steam escape out of it, and it'll dry the bread out if you just cut off a slice or two on it, and you definitely don't want that. So let the bread rest on its own for about an hour. We'll come back, we'll cut into it, I'll give it a taste test. I'll see you then. I am back, and my bread has cooled down now. I wanted to show you what that looked like. We've got a nice color on that, and we've got an even browning across the loaf. That sounds really nice, and those dried cranberries on there are looking really good. And I see just a few pieces of the walnut in there. Here's a couple pieces up here. This looks really good. My Tramontina did a really good job. It did actually, the recipe calls to cook it for 30 minutes and then take the lid off of it. And then we're going to brown it. With my normal Dutch ovens or my Emile Henry, it would take the 30 minutes and then take the lid off of it and cook it that way. This retained the heat really well. It did a really good job on that, and I didn't even have to take the lid off of it to brown it. It did that on its own. So if you have one of these, let me know if yours does the same thing. I would love to hear from you. It's got a nice finish on it, which is really pretty. The weight on it is really good. And for the value that I've got for this, it's really worth it compared to some of the other brands and things that we've got. So if you're looking for a bread oven, and this could be used for other things also. You could use this bottom part here. You could actually cook in that, and this could be the lid for it. So definitely, I would think you could use it for a lot more things other than just cooking bread. But if you love bread like I do, you've got a really easy recipe for that. This will be something good that you might want to try. I'll put the link in the description box below. That way you can go check it out. I think you'll like it also. So let's give this bread a try. I've got a bread knife here, and I'm just going to cut the edge off of it here. Like I said earlier, you want to wait for it to cool down. And if you need to heat it back up again, so if you want to put any kind of butter or anything on it, definitely heat it up if you want to. But if you cut it too soon, the steam will come out of it, and unless you're going to eat it right then, it'll get really dry, and you definitely don't want that. So I wanted to show you what the inside of that looked like. We've got a nice even crumb throughout. Those dried cranberries are really nice in there, and we've got an even distribution of our walnuts. You can see by pushing on that, we've got a nice texture for that bread. This is a really nice bread, and the Tramontina did a really good job on that. So I'm going to get some of this butter put on it, and we're going to give it a taste. This is absolutely delicious. It's got a little bit of sweetness from those dried cranberries, and I got a taste of one of the walnuts that's in there. I really like the texture of the bread. It's a really good recipe for this one. So good. You're going to have to try this one. If you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And while you're at it, check out one of these other two videos here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave me a comment if you've got one of these bread makers, or if you're thinking about getting one, definitely leave me a comment, and I want to hear how your bread turns out in yours. I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now.